Hello everyone, tonight we are visiting a cradle. One that's older than the roof it rocks beneath. The kind of cradle no one built exactly but still gets passed down from child to child, even when no children survive to claim it. You are here. You shouldn't be, and you probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Maybe we'll line up the hour. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The cradle is moving again. It doesn't creak, not exactly. There's no wooden groan, no rope swing moan, no soft bedding sigh. The noise it makes is much smaller than all that. A hush that hushes back, like breath on stone, like dried grass stirring in a shallow grave when there's no wind. You see it from the hallway just past the bend where the wall forgets to be straight. A flicker in the corner of your vision, not of light but of motion. A sway, a shiver. That cradle again. The one that wasn't there when you moved in. The one no one will touch. It's too small for a modern infant. Curved wrong like a question mark, someone never finished. Its base is hewn from a kind of fossil wood, blackened with time, petrified into a cradle that cannot burn. No one remembers who first brought it into the house. Some say it was carved from driftwood, pulled from the banks of a vanished inland sea, where ammonites once curled in gentle spirals. That much is likely true. Ammonite shapes are still visible along the rim, delicate coils fossilized into the dark grain. But someone did carve it, or willed it, or found it already breathing. Folklore says a cradle like this should never be touched until it rocks on its own. Then only then can a name be whispered into the room, never spoken aloud, never written down, just whispered. Once. If the cradle stops, you've been heard. If it doesn't, you're safe. For now. You try not to look at it directly. It's better that way. Easier. Like checking the clock at night and pretending the hour doesn't matter. You tell yourself you're rational, that your fear is learned. You're not the first. Some researchers still argue whether the instinct to fear a moving cradle without a child is purely cultural, an artifact of Victorian ghost stories and creaky films, or something older, deeper, buried where language came from. There's a rug beneath it now. That wasn't there this morning. Woven reeds, sun-dried, stitched with hair. Whose, you don't ask. Probably yours. Hopefully yours. You left the door closed last night, you're sure of it, and yet the door is open, the cradle sways, the rug waits. You breathe in and the air tastes like chamomile. Old stale chamomile. The kind that loses its sweetness and leaves only the memory of warmth. For a moment you think you hear a voice. Not outside, but inside the air itself. The kind of voice only heard by people who've been up too long, or those who fall asleep with their ear pressed to a teacup. It says nothing, but it doesn't stop. 3 years ago, a team of archaeologists unearthed a carved infant basin in Anatolia, buried in a Neolithic home surrounded by child-sized animal figurines. All untouched. All turned toward the center. One scholar claimed it was an early cradle. Another said it was an ossuary. A third suggested it was neither, that it was never meant to hold anything that lived. That theory was quietly redacted the following year. No one asks why. You haven't slept properly in days. You tried moving the cradle once. Just an inch. Just enough to vacuum underneath it. The vacuum never started. It made a noise like breath caught in a closed throat, then refused to try again. When you tried to lift the cradle, your hands felt like they were beneath ice. Not cold, but weightless and wrong. You cleaned around it instead. It rocks more now. Slowly, gently, but not randomly. You swear it slows when you pass. It picks up when you turn away. You test it. You stand in the doorway and hum. A lullaby from nowhere, just something your mouth made up. Nothing with meaning. You think, and the cradle stops. You laugh, a brittle sound. Well, guess I'm the mom now, you whisper, because jokes are shields and you need more shields. The cradle starts again. Faster. You stop laughing. You leave the room, but you don't close the door. Because part of you wants to see, needs to see. Because deep down you've started counting something. The time between the creaks, the number of rocks, the way it matches your heartbeat. Or maybe not your heartbeat, not exactly. You remember a story you read once about a family who passed down a swaddling cloth no one used. Every generation added a stitch. The cloth grew until it resembled a shroud. The child who finally wore it never stopped screaming. That story was in a footnote, a half-page reference in a book that no longer appears on your shelf. The cradle still rocks. You still watch. The room smells like something almost asleep. You keep the lights dim now. Not out of fear exactly, though there's that always, but because bright light makes the cradle stop. And when it stops, it doesn't just sit still, it waits. Some stillnesses are patient. This one is rehearsing. You try to pretend your house is normal. You water the plants. You reheat leftovers. You even watch one of those cheerful videos of a man carving a canoe from a log just to ground yourself in human effort. But your eyes keep drifting to the hallway. Not to the cradle itself, you don't need to see it anymore. Just the hallway. Just the edge of knowing. One morning you find a feather in your bed. It's small, white, ridged like a sleeping eyelid. You haven't had birds in the house ever. You live alone. But the feather is real. You hold it in your palm and it's weightless. So light it seems to vanish when you stop paying attention. You place it in a drawer. The drawer sticks now. You consider calling someone, a historian maybe, a folklorist, but you hesitate. What would you say? Hello. I have a cradle that may or may not predate language and seems to understand lullabies. Hello, I believe something is rocking a child that was never born. Hello, I can't stop dreaming about reeds and bone pins and fingers pressing gently on my eyelids. You say nothing. You keep the phone charged just in case. In the old myths of the Sami people, there are spirits called Saivo, who live in a mirrored world beneath the lakes. There, every object has a twin. If a spoon is lost on Earth, its twin is broken in the Saivo. And sometimes it's the other way around. Something breaks in the reflection first, and the echo reaches up. Somewhere in your reflection, a cradle is still. The researchers who studied ancient burial cradles from the Caucasus once debated whether the grooves worn into their rock bases came from centuries of ritual rocking, or whether they were carved that way to mimic wear. One dig revealed a slab cradle with a fossil tooth embedded at the headrest. Possibly a charm. Possibly a warning. Possibly nothing. Possibly nothing is a phrase you've started repeating like a prayer. Possibly nothing, possibly nothing, possibly you hear the cradle rock at the same time each night now. It coincides with the hour when children wake from fever dreams and call for mothers they don't remember. It's not just swaying anymore. It taps lightly, the way an infant might knock in the womb, a rhythm without origin. You tried sleeping with earplugs. You still hear it. You tried sleeping outside. The sound followed. One night you wake to find yourself humming again. You don't remember starting. You're lying on your side facing the hallway, eyes closed, mouth moving. The tune is unfamiliar, but your voice is steady. And the cradle is absolutely still. You hum for hours. You stop when your throat aches. You don't hear the cradle start again, but when you finally rise and peek out, it's back in motion. Slow, content, as though rocked by something unseen and unbothered by your absence. That morning there are fingerprints on your mirror. Not handprints, just fingers. 5 faint streaks, each tapering to a point. You try to wipe them away. They smear but they don't vanish, like soot made of breath. You sleep with a flashlight in your hand now. You check your face every morning. No new lines, no marks. But your eyes look wrong in photos, not evil, not haunted, just misplaced. Like they were borrowed. There's a growing indentation in the floor beneath the cradle. The wood is worn in a perfect arc as if time were a chisel. You could measure it, but that would make it real. And anyway, the curve matches the fossils you once saw in a museum exhibit about ancient cephalopods. chambered shells arranged in shrinking spirals. One docent called them memory geometry. You laugh then. You don't laugh now. You dream of reeds more often. You see a woman bending to weave them. Her hands are cracked red from salt. She ties each bundle with a knot you've never seen. Behind her, a cradle is being buried in sand. Not to hide it, to plant it. You wake before the cradle hatches. Some researchers believe that certain burial cradles were never meant to hold the dead, but to guide unborn souls to their next life. Portable wombs for the spirit. This is debated extensively, especially by scholars who have never rocked a child who wouldn't sleep or waited for a cry that never came. You are not a scholar. You are someone who watches a shadow rock back and forth and prays that it means nothing. There's a piece of this rug unraveling now. You find a knot by your pillow, the same shape from the dream. The feather is gone. You hum again that night. Not out of fear, but habit. The cradle doesn't stop. But it rocks more slowly. It's listening. It always has been. You begin to wonder if the house was ever empty. You wake to silence, not peace, not rest. Silence. The kind that folds itself into your sheets and clings behind your ears. The kind that only happens when something is missing. The cradle isn't rocking. You wait. You don't move. You listen for the faint hush, the tiny sound like breath against bark, but nothing comes. Just silence stretching like animal hide between the walls. You try to be relieved. You tell yourself this is what you wanted. Then why are you sweating? You stand slowly. The floor feels unfamiliar, colder than it should be. When you reach the hallway, the door is still open. You left it open, hoping for what witnesses, but the cradle is gone. The rug remains. So does the curve in the floor. But the cradle, the impossible fossil cradle, is missing. You kneel hesitant and place your palm in the hollow where it used to sit. The wood is warm, not recently warm, lived in warm, rocked from within warm. You stand too quickly. The hallway tilts. Behind you in the living room, something shifts. A laugh escapes you, small, dry, hopeful. It moved. You say it like someone proud of a toddler's first steps, like someone whose fear is getting sentimental. You're wrong, of course. It didn't move. It was placed. It's in the corner now, half in shadow, facing the wrong direction. Not turned toward the hallway as before, but toward the back wall, as if watching something only it can see. Or waiting for something it always knew would arrive. You feel the urge to reposition it. Silly, really, like adjusting a painting or straightening a crooked rug. But your hand won't lift. It's like trying to raise your arm underwater. A thick, resisting pressure, heavy but soft. Not painful, just parental. Some Paleolithic cavey art shows abstract patterns arranged around hollows in the rock. Some scholars believe these hollows were used as resting places for infants while their mothers worked nearby. Others think they were places of offering wombs for the mountain. At least one archaeologist insists the indentations weren't for the living or the dead, but for something else entirely. That paper was never published. The author now studies fungi. You sleep on the couch that night with the cradle behind you. It doesn't move. It doesn't breathe. But you dream of breath. Small, shallow warm on your cheek, like a hand brushing your face in sleep. You wake and your face is damp. You're humming again. No melody this time. Just the syllables of your name backwards, like something forgotten trying to remember you. The next morning, a friend texts you for the first time in weeks. Do you still have that creepy cradle? You don't reply, your hands feel wrong on the screen. You Google how to get rid of cursed heirlooms. Most of the advice involves salt, fire, or denial. Only one forum thread seems plausible. An old post from 2012. The title reads, "Inherited a cradle no one remembers making." The comments are mostly jokes, memes, or ghost stories. But one reply stands out. You don't get rid of a cradle like that. You just keep it rocking until someone else comes along who shouldn't have to rock it alone. The account has since been deleted. You hum again that night, but not to calm the cradle. You hum to keep your hands from shaking. The cradle remains still. It's waiting for something else. You try to sing the same lullaby you made up weeks ago, but the tune is different now. Lower, slower, almost backward. You don't finish it. The next morning, the feather is back. Larger, gray now, quilled dark as ink, lying across your chest like a quirk of dreaming. You place it beside the rug knot in your drawer. The drawer closes more easily now. The cradle has grown. You measure it. Once, twice. You don't want to, but you do. It's at least 2 inches longer than it was. The base still bears ammonite curls, but they've shifted subtly. The spirals curve inward now, like ears, listening. You stop vacuuming. You sweep the corners instead. Dust collects faster than before. A fine silt gray-green, almost ancient. When you rub it between your fingers, it smells of riverbanks and hollow stone. In another Neolithic dig site, a child's skeleton was found with a carved stone object at its side, a replica of a cradle made entirely of mammoth ivory. The object was marked with burn lines, evidence of ritual scorching. Some say it was a toy, others a funerary symbol. One dissenting scholar believed it was used to transfer a burden to pass something on. You wonder what is being passed to you. You hum again even when you're not near the cradle. It calms the air. Your plants seem to perk up. Your sleep becomes deeper. Your dreams, though strange, are no longer frightening. You see animals curled in tight spirals. You see mothers with no faces. You see the stars as teeth. And still, the cradle waits. You wake one morning to find it closer to the window. Just slightly. A foot, maybe. You never heard it move, but it always seems to know where you are. It follows the light, or the sound, or you. One day, it will reach the foot of your bed, but not yet. You tell yourself it's just a piece of furniture, a keepsake, a puzzle, an oddity of ancient hands. Maybe it came from somewhere important. Maybe it's just driftwood. Maybe it doesn't want anything from you at all. Maybe it just wants to be rocked. The cradle reaches your bedroom on a Thursday. You didn't hear it move. You didn't see it arrive. But when you open your eyes, it's already there, positioned precisely at the foot of your bed. Angled not at you, but slightly off-center, as if it's looking at where you will be. You don't scream. You blink slowly, like prey pretending not to exist. The cradle rocks once. That's all. You hum. You don't know when humming became your reflex for fear. Maybe it was always there, tucked in some ancient reptilian fold of your mind. Humming to hold the dark still, to keep the ghosts soft. This time, the cradle doesn't react. You hum louder. It rocks again. Not toward you, just back. A subtle withdrawal, like an animal not yet sure if it's been seen. You think about sleeping in the bathtub. You think about salt lines and sage sticks and unsent emails to folklorists who might not laugh. But none of those things are what you do. Instead, you stand. The floor is cold. You expect dread. You get gravity, simple and inescapable. You walk around the cradle slowly clockwise, as though circling a well. Its shape is different again, less fossil, more spine. The ammonite spirals have deepened like ears pressed to the wood. You whisper your name into it. Nothing happens. That should feel like relief. It doesn't. Instead, the cradle releases a smell faint familiar, like warm milk that's been forgotten too long. Not sour, just faded. You don't remember pouring any. You leave the room. The cradle stays. That night, you find a thin string tied around your doorknob, made of reed braided. The knot is the same as before. You untie it and drop it into the drawer. The knot doesn't unwind, just nestles in beside the feather. You hum. You don't stop. You hum while brushing your teeth, while making tea, while standing in the doorway watching the cradle not move. Your voice gets hoarse. The cradle doesn't care. Outside, the wind changes. You find sand on your windowsill. Just a little. Pale dry, too fine to be tracked by shoes. You haven't been near a beach. It smells like open time. In medieval Welsh legend, There's a tale of the cradle of Cledno Eden, a magical crib that could appear wherever its owner wished, even in the middle of battlefields. It rocked itself. It silenced all crying. Some say it could even disguise a child from death itself. Others say it was never meant for children, but for things that mimicked them. You can't find that story online anymore. The link redirects to a modern furniture site. The cradle doesn't rock at all now, it just waits. One night you dream you are carrying it. Not as it is, but as it was small fossil black light as breath. You walk across an open field. The stars overhead flicker like the inside of closed eyes. You lay the cradle in the earth and bury it gently, humming all the while. When you wake, your hands are streaked with dust. You no longer check your reflection first thing in the morning. Not since the night your mirror didn't reflect the cradle. You try to record it. Your phone glitches. Static floods the mic. A lullaby, your voice plays backward through the speaker. You delete the file. The next day it reappears. You call your friend, the one who asked about the cradle. They don't remember texting you. They say their phone's been off for weeks. You both laugh. Only one of you means it. You start leaving offerings. You're not sure why. A shell, a feather, a folded scrap of cloth, a spool of red thread. The cradle doesn't acknowledge any of them, but it doesn't reject them either. The thread disappears by morning. The shell remains, but fossilized. The cloth comes back to you, warmer than before. You find that comforting. Which worries you. A team of archaeologists recently uncovered a Bronze Age burial of a woman, surrounded by miniature furniture chairs, cups, a tiny cradle. The items were carved from amber. Some speculate they were meant for her lost child buried elsewhere. Others say she died in childbirth and was buried with tools to raise a child in the afterlife. One scholar argued they were never toys at all but symbols of burden, roles passed down unseen. That scholar later retracted the paper, stating simply, "I had a child." You understand that now. You haven't slept well, but you haven't slept poorly either. You drift, you sway, you rock, you dream of yourself younger. You sit in the cradle. It is too small, but you fit. You are being rocked. The world outside the cradle is distant, unimportant. Something sings to you. It is not your voice. It is not a voice at all. You wake with a lullaby on your tongue. You write it down, just in case. Just in case the cradle forgets how to sleep. You leave your bedroom door open now. Not to see, not to flee, just to listen. The cradle rocks twice that night and hums back. The house is quieter now. Not empty, never that, but quieter. Like a breath being held somewhere inside the walls, waiting to be let out gently without startling anything still awake. The cradle rocks, always now. Not faster, not slower. Just steady, just right. It no longer follows you. It no longer needs to. You come to it. You find yourself sitting nearby most evenings. Not directly in front, there's a reverence to maintain, but close. Close enough to feel the pressure in the room shift. Close enough to notice when the hum begins. Because it does hum now. Low and distant, like wind echoing through reeds. Or a voice singing from the bottom of a well. The melody isn't yours, but it's familiar. It remembers you. You don't talk much anymore. There's no one to talk to. Friends text less often, calls go unanswered. You're not lonely, you're attended to. Like a flame watched over. And when you do speak, it's softer. Less like a question, more like a lullaby with too many verses. You start placing objects by the cradle again. Not out of fear, out of routine. A pebble from the garden, a thimble, a strand of hair, a soft ribbon from a parcel you don't remember receiving. The cradle accepts them. Or doesn't. Some vanish. Some remain altered. One morning you find the shell you left filled with a dark glinting dust. You don't touch it. It hums faintly when the light hits it. You begin to sleep deeper. So deep you forget your name on waking. It returns slowly, not all at once, like fog pulling back to reveal the spine of a hill. You hum it back into being. You stop keeping time. You know the cradle has grown again. You don't measure it. To do so would be to admit it's becoming. And if it's becoming, then it will one day be. And if it will be, then something else may follow. So instead, you tidy the room. You sweep. You dust. You smooth the rug. You hum. And sometimes just before sleep, you catch the cradle rocking not back and forth, but side to side. A different rhythm, a different need. You've begun reading again. Not books you remember buying, but volumes that feel like they've always lived in your shelves. Bound in strange hide, no title filled with illustrations of objects that feel familiar. Spiral stones, sleeping masks, cradles carved into the walls of caves. Some pages hum when turned. There's one passage you read over and over. When a cradle is passed from hand to hand without birth, it begins to remember the weight of what was never there. And that memory must go somewhere. The author's name is unreadable. You hum louder that night. You wake to find the cradle empty in a new way. Not abandoned, prepared. The shape of something having been there, not quite infant-sized, not quite human, lingers in the folds of the woven interior. You don't look too long. In one particularly old dig near Çatalhöyük, archaeologists unearthed a room containing 12 child-sized beds carved into the clay floor. No remains, just impressions. Some believe the room was ceremonial, a nursery of spirits. Others thought it was an orphan's chapel. One skeptical researcher called it a sleep experiment of the dead. He laughed at his own joke in the documentary. No one else did. You no longer laugh at anything in this house. Not out of fear, out of respect. You begin humming through your dreams now, even the ones that don't belong to you. You see the woman again, the one from before. Her hands now older, more cracked. She weaves not reeds, but strands of something that look like memory. She hums. She looks up. This time she sees you. She smiles, just a little. And she says, not with her mouth, but with her presence, "We do not sleep to forget, we sleep to carry." You wake with tears on your pillow and the cradle swaying in perfect time. That night, you do not hum. You listen, and the cradle rocks without you. You leave the door open permanently now. Not just for you, for whatever's next. You don't need the lullaby anymore. It remembers itself. It hums through the floorboards, through the window panes, through the gaps in your memory where names once lived. And when the cradle finally stops, no creak, no whisper, just silence again. You understand? You are the last child who never reached morning, and the cradle is ready to be passed on. They will find the house long after you are gone. Quiet, intact, everything in its place. Nothing disturbed, just a room with a rug, a cradle, and the faint, sweet smell of warmed air. The kind of smell that comes from breath recently gone. No one will touch the cradle, not at first. They will speak softly around it. Avoid standing too close. Children will glance at it, then look away. One will hum, without knowing why. The cradle will rock again. And someone else, someone not yet born, will sit nearby one day and wonder what it means to carry a silence too small to bury.